What if 5 children vanished into thin air on Christmas Eve, leaving behind only ashes, unanswered questions, and a family's desperate search for truth that would span decades? Welcome to Sherlock Mode. December 24th, 1945. Fayetteville, West Virginia. Snow falls gently on a quiet street where Christmas lights twinkle in windows. But inside one house, a nightmare is about to begin. The Sodder family home stands 2 stories tall, filled with the warmth of Christmas spirit. George Sodder, an Italian immigrant, sits with his wife Jenny and 9 of their 10 children. The children laugh and play as Christmas Eve winds down. 14-year-old Maurice jokes with his siblings. 12-year-old Martha helps tuck in little Betty, who is only 5. 9-year-old Louis builds with his Christmas toys while 8-year-old Jenny, named after her mother, sits quietly by the fire. None of them know this will be their last Christmas together. As midnight approaches, the family prepares for bed. George checks the doors one final time. The house settles into peaceful silence, blanketed by falling snow. But peace would not last. At 1 a.m, a phone rings, piercing the quiet night. Jenny answers, groggy and confused. A stranger's voice asks for someone who doesn't live there. In the background, Jenny hears loud music and laughter, as if from a party. The caller hangs up without explanation. Jenny returns to bed, disturbed by the strange call. Something feels wrong, but she cannot place what. Outside, shadows move in the darkness. 30 minutes later, Jenny wakes to the smell of smoke. Her heart pounds as she realizes the house is on fire. The downstairs is already engulfed in flames. George springs into action, gathering the children who sleep downstairs. 2-year-old Sylvia cries in her crib. 17-year-old Marion stumbles from her room in confusion. 23-year-old John and 16-year-old George Jr. race down from upstairs, their hair singed by the heat. They barely make it out alive. But where are the other 5? Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty are still upstairs. The staircase burns like a furnace, cutting off all escape. George counts his children in the freezing night air. 4 safe, 1 not home, 5 missing. His heart breaks as he realizes what this means. He must save them. George breaks a window with his bare hands, slicing his arm open. Blood drips onto the snow as he tries to climb back inside. The smoke is too thick, the heat too intense. He cannot see anything through the wall of fire and smoke that has consumed his home. George remembers his ladder. He always keeps it against the house for repairs. But when he runs to get it, the ladder is gone, vanished without a trace. Panic sets in. He runs to his coal trucks, thinking he can drive one to the house and climb on top to reach the windows. But neither truck will start. The engines that worked perfectly the day before are now dead. George pounds the steering wheel in frustration as precious minutes tick away. Marion runs barefoot through the snow to the neighbor's house. Her feet go numb in the freezing cold, but she pushes forward. Her siblings' lives depend on it. She pounds on the neighbor's door until they answer. With shaking hands, she dials the fire department, but the operator doesn't respond. The line is dead. The neighbor grabs his coat and drives into town to alert the fire chief in person. Every second counts, but help feels impossibly far away. Back at the house, George finds a barrel of water to fight the flames. But when he tips it over, nothing comes out. The water is frozen solid. All he can do is stand in the snow and scream his children's names at the burning house. Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, Betty, but only the roar of flames answers back. Fire Chief Morris wakes to urgent pounding on his door. The neighbor explains the situation, and Morris begins calling the volunteer firefighters one by one. But the phone tree system is slow. Each volunteer must call the next. Then they must gather at the firehouse and drive to the scene. Time slips away like sand. The Sodder house is only 2.5 miles from the firehouse. It should take minutes to respond, but the firefighters don't arrive for 7 long hours. 7 hours. As Christmas morning dawns, the house is nothing but smoldering ash and twisted metal. The family stands numb in the cold December air. When the fire trucks finally arrive, there's no urgency, no frantic searching. The time for rescue has long passed. Now comes only the grim task of searching for bodies. The firefighters spray water on the smoldering wreckage and begin to search. They look for bones, teeth, anything that might remain of 5 young children. But they find nothing. Not a single bone. Not one tooth. Not even a belt buckle or piece of jewelry. It's as if the children simply vanished into thin air. Fire Chief Morris declares that the fire must have burned so hot it cremated the children completely. He pronounces them dead at the scene. The next day, December 26th, a coroner's jury meets. Without any investigation, they declare the fire accidental. The case is closed before it ever truly began. By December 30th, death certificates are issued for Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty. The children are legally dead, though no bodies were ever found. A state police inspector eventually arrives to investigate. He examines the ruins and declares the cause was faulty electrical wiring. Case closed. But George cannot accept this explanation. He had the house rewired recently and inspected. The electrical system was perfect. Something else caused this fire. Everything happened too fast. The fire department took 7 hours to arrive, but officials rushed to declare it an accident and the children dead within days. George brings in dirt to cover the ruins and plants a memorial garden. If the story ended here, the family could grieve in peace. But this is only the beginning. In spring, as construction begins on a new house nearby, a telephone repairman makes a disturbing discovery. He calls George over to a telephone pole. The repairman expected to find burned telephone wire hanging from the pole. Instead, he found the wire had been cut cleanly. Someone deliberately severed their phone line. George's mind races. The strange phone call at 1 a.m. The missing ladder. The trucks that wouldn't start. The cut phone line. This was no accident. Someone wanted to trap his family in that burning house. Someone made sure they couldn't call for help or escape. But who would do such a thing? George remembers the threats. As an Italian immigrant, he spoke out against Mussolini's fascist regime. This made him enemies in the local Italian community. One business associate, we'll call him Nick, had argued violently with George about politics. Their friendship ended in bitter hatred and terrible words. Nick had shouted at George, "Your goddamn house is going up in smoke and your children are going to be destroyed. You'll pay for your dirty remarks about Mussolini." Just weeks before the fire, a strange man had stopped by George's business. He examined the electrical fuse box and made an ominous comment. The stranger said the fuses were in poor condition and that George's house might catch fire. When George checked, the fuses were fine. Who was this man? George and Jenny share their suspicions with police. Though skeptical, the authorities agree to investigate and post notices asking for information about the fire. Soon, disturbing reports begin to surface. A witness comes forward with information about the morning after the fire that makes George's blood run cold. The witness saw a young man removing something from the ashes before the firefighters arrived. He blended into the crowd when the fire trucks finally came. Police track down this lead and identify the man as Lonnie Johnson, a local thief. When confronted, they discover a block and tackle belonging to George. Lonnie swears he had nothing to do with the fire, but admits to stealing from the ruins. What else might have been taken? What evidence was destroyed? More witnesses come forward. A woman driving past around 12:30 a.m., 30 minutes before the fire, saw someone throwing balls of fire onto the roof of the house. Another witness spotted a man watching the house from his car for weeks before the fire. He would sit there for hours, just watching the family. The pieces of a terrible puzzle begin to form. This was not an accident. Someone planned this fire. Someone wanted to hurt the Sodder family. But the most shocking revelation is yet to come. 2 weeks after the fire, Jenny receives a phone call that will haunt her for the rest of her life. A woman's voice claims she knows what happened to the Sodder children. She says they are safe and being cared for, but then she demands money for more information. When Jenny begs for proof, the caller describes details about the children that only someone who knew them could know. Then the line goes dead. George and Jenny are torn between hope and despair. Could their children really be alive? Were they taken by someone with a grudge against George? The family hires a private detective to investigate. He travels throughout the region, following leads and interviewing witnesses. What he discovers changes everything. The detective learns that several people saw the children after the fire. A hotel worker reports checking in a family matching their description the next morning. A waitress at a truck stop says she served breakfast to 5 children who looked exactly like the missing Sodder kids. They seemed scared and wouldn't speak. A woman claims she saw the children getting into a car with Italian license plates. They were crying and reaching back toward Fayetteville. Each sighting gives the family hope, but also raises more questions. If the children are alive, who took them? Where are they now? Why hasn't anyone found them? Years pass. The case grows cold. Police lose interest. But George and Ginny never give up hope. They know in their hearts that their children are out there somewhere. In the 1950s, they erect a billboard on Highway 16 near the site of their former home. It shows photos of the 5 children and offers a reward for information. The billboard reads, "What was their fate? Kidnapped, murdered, or are they still alive?" For decades, thousands of drivers pass this haunting reminder daily. The family receives hundreds of tips over the years. Some are from well-meaning people. Others are cruel hoaxes that break their hearts all over again. In 1967, 22 years after the fire, Ginny receives a photograph in the mail. It shows a young man who looks remarkably like what Lewis might look like as an adult. The photo is postmarked from Kentucky. On the back, someone has written Lewis Sodder, and I love Brother Frankie. Illo boys. A 90132 or 35. The family compares the photo to pictures of Lewis as a child. The resemblance is striking. The eyes, the nose, the shape of the face. Could this really be their son? They hire detectives to trace the photograph, but the investigation leads nowhere. The postmark tells them nothing. The cryptic message remains a mystery. More years pass. George dies in 1969, still believing his children are alive. Ginny continues the search alone, keeping the billboard maintained and updated. In the 1970s, a woman calls claiming to be Betty, the youngest of the missing children. She says she wants to come home but is afraid of someone who might hurt her. The caller provides details about the family that seem authentic. She knows about the memorial garden, about George's work, about things only Betty would know. Ginny begs her to meet in person, to come home where she'll be safe. But the woman hangs up and never calls again. Was it really Betty, or another cruel hoax? As the decades roll by, the case becomes local legend. The billboard weathers and fades, but the mystery only deepens. What really happened at Christmas Eve? Ginny dies in 1989, taking her secrets and suspicions to the grave. The billboard is finally taken down, but the questions remain unanswered. The surviving children continue the search into the 21st century. Sylvia, who was just 2 when her siblings vanished, leads the effort to keep their memory alive. Modern investigators have re-examined the case using new technology. They've studied the fire patterns, the witness statements, and the physical evidence. Computer analysis of the mysterious photograph suggests it could indeed be Lewis Sodder. The facial structure matches mathematical models of how he would have aged. Fire experts have also weighed in on the case. They say it's extremely unlikely that 5 bodies would be completely cremated in a house fire, especially children's bones. Professional cremation requires temperatures over 2,000 degrees for hours. House fires rarely exceed 1,000 degrees and burn for much shorter periods. Even partial remains should have been found. Teeth, bone fragments, metal from clothing. The complete absence of any remains is almost impossible to explain. This evidence supports what George and Ginny believed all along. Their children were not in that house when it burned. They were taken somewhere else. But taken by whom? And why? The answers may lie in the threatening words spoken before the fire and the mysterious circumstances surrounding it. Some investigators believe the children were kidnapped by someone seeking revenge against George for his anti-Mussolini stance. Others think it was connected to organized crime. George's trucking business may have interfered with illegal activities in the region. A third theory suggests the children were sold to families who couldn't have children of their own. This would explain the sightings and the mysterious phone calls. Whatever the truth, someone went to great lengths to plan and execute this crime. The cut phone lines, disabled vehicles, and missing ladder were not coincidences. The delayed fire department response also raises questions. 7 hours to travel 2.5 miles suggests either incompetence or something more sinister. Perhaps someone in authority was paid to look the other way. Perhaps the quick conclusion that it was an accident was meant to cover up the truth. The case has inspired countless theories, books, documentaries, and investigations. But after nearly 80 years, the truth remains hidden in shadow. DNA technology offers new hope for solving the mystery. If any of the children survived and had families, their descendants could be identified through genetic testing. The photograph of the young man believed to be Lewis has been enhanced using modern techniques. Facial recognition software supports the family's belief it could be him. Social media has also brought new attention to the case. People share the story online, hoping someone somewhere might recognize the faces or remember something important. The memorial garden still stands where the house once burned. Flowers bloom there each spring, tended by family members who refuse to let the memory fade. Visitors come from around the world to pay their respects and learn about the case. The story has become part of American folklore, a mystery that captivates generation after generation. If Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty survived, they would be elderly now. Maurice would be in his 90s. The youngest, Betty, would be in her 80s. They might have children and grandchildren who know nothing about their true origins. They might have lived full lives under different names in different places. Or they might have died years ago, taking the truth with them to their graves. The world may never know what happened on that terrible Christmas Eve. But their story lives on, a reminder that some mysteries run deeper than we can imagine. Some secrets are buried so deep they may never see the light. The Sodder children disappearance remains one of America's most baffling unsolved cases. It has all the elements of a perfect mystery: suspicious circumstances, multiple suspects, and conflicting evidence. It raises questions about justice, truth, and the lengths people will go to protect their secrets. It shows how one night of terror can echo through the decades. Let us analyze the evidence like Sherlock Holmes would, piece by piece, clue by clue. What really happened to Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty Sodder? First, the physical evidence strongly suggests the children were not in the house when it burned. No remains, no teeth, no metal objects that should have survived the fire. Second, the sabotage was too coordinated to be random. Cut phone lines, missing ladder, disabled trucks, and delayed rescue response all point to careful planning. Third, George had made real enemies through his political views. The threats against his family were specific and credible, especially from Nick, who predicted the house would burn. Fourth, the sightings and phone calls suggest someone knew what happened to the children. The details provided were too accurate to be coincidental. Who could have orchestrated such a complex crime? It would require multiple people, inside knowledge of the family's routines, and connections to delay the fire response. The mysterious man who examined the fuse box suggests advanced planning. Someone was gathering intelligence about the house's electrical system weeks before the fire. The strange midnight phone call may have been a signal to confirm the family was home and asleep. It allowed the perpetrators to time their attack perfectly. The witness who saw someone throwing fireballs onto the roof confirms arson. This was not an electrical fire as officials claimed, but a deliberate attack. But why take the children instead of simply letting them die in the fire? Perhaps killing children was a line even these criminals wouldn't cross. Or maybe the children were more valuable alive, either for ransom, revenge, or sale to childless couples willing to pay for illegal adoptions. The photograph of the adult Lewis suggests at least some children survived into adulthood. The facial analysis is compelling, and the timing fits perfectly. The cryptic message on the back of the photo indicates Lewis may have wanted his family to know he was alive, but was afraid to make direct contact. Brother Frankie could refer to another sibling who was also taken. The numbers might be an address, prison number, or some other coded location. The fact that none of the children ever returned home suggests they were either prevented from doing so by fear, distance, or death. If they were raised by other families, they might not even know their true identities. They could have been told their original parents died or abandoned them. The 7-hour delay in fire department response is perhaps the most damning evidence of conspiracy. Someone in authority had to be involved to allow such negligence. The quick official conclusion that it was an accident and the children were dead suggests a cover-up. No proper investigation was conducted before the case was closed. Local corruption in small towns was common in the 1940s. A few bribes to the right officials could ensure questions were never asked and investigations never conducted. The most likely scenario is that enemies of George Sodder planned the attack as revenge for his political views, but decided to spare the children's lives. They removed the children before setting the fire, then either sold them to other families or raised them in distant locations under false identities. The criminals may have believed this was more merciful than murder, while still achieving their goal of destroying George's family and silencing his political voice. But they underestimated George and Jenny's determination to find their children. The billboard and publicity turned their quiet revenge into a decades-long investigation. The truth may have died with the original conspirators, but advances in DNA technology and genealogy research offer new hope for answers. If descendants of the Sodder children are alive today, genetic testing could prove the connection and finally solve the mystery that has haunted America for 80 years. Someone, somewhere, knows what happened to Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty Sodder. The question is whether they will ever come forward with the truth. Until that day, the case remains a testament to the power of love, determination, and the human need for truth. George and Jenny never stopped believing their children were alive. Their faith sustained them through decades of heartbreak and false hope. They turned their tragedy into a mission, their grief into a beacon for others who seek answers. The story of the Sodder children reminds us that some mysteries are more than puzzles to be solved. They are windows into the depths of human experience. They show us what people will do for love, for revenge, for justice, and for truth. They reveal both the darkness and the light that exists in every human heart. Perhaps someday, someone will step forward with the final piece of the puzzle. Perhaps DNA will unlock the secret that has been hidden for so long. Until then, we honor the memory of 5 children who vanished on Christmas Eve 1945 and the parents who never stopped looking for them. Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty Sodder. Wherever you are, your family never forgot you. Your story will be told until the truth is finally known. The mystery endures, as captivating today as it was 80 years ago. It remains a puzzle waiting for someone with the courage to speak the truth. If you enjoyed unraveling this mystery, like and subscribe to Sherlock Mode.